talk either. So there we go. Vocal projection. It took me a while to come up with the topic for today. I was battling between introducing maybe a crypto or talking more about mindset stuff until it dawned on me that vocal projection is something that you'd never think is as important as it is, except if you've been to a direct bootcamp, for example, then that might have shed some light on it. But realized that, hey, this is actually a topic that will be very useful for absolutely everyone in the group and anyone watching this. So so why not go ahead and introduce more techniques and more exercises and talk about vocal projection in detail. Background and personal story. So first of all, anyone can learn strong vocal projection. It's not something that you're either born with or you're not. It's way more about unlearning negative conditioning around it than learning a new skill. So for example, a bit of a background story. My vocal projection personally is very, very strong nowadays. I was not always like this. This is basically all of my vocal projection and my vocal strength is learned. And for example, when I was in my teens or when I was like 18, 19, 20, my vocal projection and my voice usage was much weaker. It wasn't really that healthy. And I only learned how to speak very strongly through years of singing training and then taking the course on being a certified vocal coach. I don't know if I've been vocal about it, pun intended, haha, but I'm a certified vocal coach as well. I did a 3-year course in Complete Vocal Institute in Copenhagen in 2018. And so yeah, I'm actually certified to teach people how to sing and how to speak as well. I didn't go through that course with the intention of ever building a business out of it. I never wanted to do it as a business. That was not the intention. I wanted to learn their very specific singing technique that they teach in Copenhagen. And when you're able to teach something, that's when you actually know enough things about it. But I have landed my first client at the beginning of this month in 2022. I made a public announcement at one of the family dinners that I run nowadays bi-weekly in Tulum that I'm going to start giving singing classes, and that I'm also very happy to teach entrepreneurs and like non-singers on how to use their voice in a powerful way and how to make it healthy. And immediately one of the guys who was at the dinner came to me and said that, hey, he would actually be very interested in some coaching on the vocal projection side of things. And yeah, he ended up signing up for a monthly deal. So I have a weekly session with him, and he's my first client. I'll be slowly growing this on the side. It's a side project, but it's nice to teach people, and it's something that I've been cultivating my own voice for years. So there's a lot that I can share on that topic. And there's actually a potential for an online course later this year as well. There's a couple of things that I'm planning on doing an online course on. This is one of them: vocal projection for business people and entrepreneurs, and what would be a good term? Career people. And another one would be song interpretation, on how to bring story and presence to your singing, but that's a whole separate story. Now, there's a curious thing about how this all ties together. Originally, when I started going to Derek's boot camps, whenever there's a boot camp, the first topic that we talk about is vocal projection, and that you need to project strong, because in a nightclub, even if you do everything else well, if she cannot hear you, you're done. Like, you're just done. And somewhere down the line, I offered to give men who didn't have a strong vocal coaching on the spot on how to give like quick fixes, and why I made it into Derek's team to begin with. I wasn't super good at like dating. Like I was strong, but it wasn't the single biggest reason why I made it into the team. I think this was basically my number one reason why I made it into his team for a year. My ability to coach men on how to project vocally. Vocal projection. Why should I care? As I just said, every Derek bootcamp started with pointing out the importance of strong vocal projection. And as I said, even if you do everything else, well, she can't hear you, you're done. Strong vocal projection holds attention in any social interaction. And this can be a business meeting, this can be a presentation, this can be a social gathering, it can be literally anything. And I get reminders of this on a very regular basis here in Tulum. Tulum has a lot of men's groups active. And what is a men's group? We sit in a circle and we talk about life and we talk about emotions, and we do it in a rather vulnerable way. And it's always kind of interesting to see the difference of engagement in the group when someone who does not have a strong vocal projection is speaking versus when I'm speaking. So let's take an example. If we have a circle of men of 15 men in a circle, and everyone gets 2 minutes to share how they're doing, what's going on in their life. So if someone who does not have a strong vocal projection is speaking, first of all, you find yourself, when you're listening to that, you find yourself kind of like having to tune into it. Like you subconsciously start putting your ear a little bit towards the person who's speaking, especially if there's any background noise whatsoever. Like you need to put effort in to pay attention. And it becomes a little bit strenuous, and it becomes a little bit of work to listen to someone, and it takes energy from you. And sooner rather than later, you will most likely find yourself reaching for your phone and checking for it, because it's just too much hassle to really pay attention to the person speaking if the vocal projection is not strong enough. Whereas when it's my turn to speak, and I whenever I'm in a group situation like that, I'm even more conscious about my vocal projection than I would usually be. Every single eyeball is on me. I project so strong that you cannot ignore me. Like, you can't do anything else except give me your full attention. And that is like, it's a fairly, unless you're aware of that, it's a pretty invisible effect, but it's a very, very real one. So it's literally the difference between night and day on how strong your presence is as a function of your for your vocal projection. So presentations, nightclubs, and it's not only about strength either. Healthy vocal projection is equally important. Some of us speak all day. Like, if you use your voice to present or talk to people, coach people, for example, for a full day, if you don't know how to take care of your voice, you're pretty fucked. And you're going to end up having your voice hoarse. You're going to end up straining your vocal cords. You're going to end up getting them swollen, and you might have to take a couple of days off in order to give your voice a rest, and so that you can keep speaking again. Good news is you can use very, very strong vocal projection, and it can be completely healthy. For example, the way I'm speaking right now is resonating pretty strong. It's strong, and it's also healthy. I could speak like this for the entire day and my voice would not get tired. And I'll get into the technicalities of the reasons behind that in the coming slides. And the importance really of this is that your vocal projection and your presence in a room may literally make or break your biggest business deal in life. Like this, that's why this skill is relevant to all of us and why I'm speaking about this today. Fundamentals. Believe it or not, but everyone is born with perfect vocal projection. When we are babies and we let out the first cries, and we cry for mom, we cry for dad, we cry for attention, we are born with a perfect vocal projection. Now, This is a bit of an overgeneralization because yes, you can have biological and physical defects that hinder your vocal projection even as a baby, but this is true enough that I can make a statement on a presentation like this, and we can just generally assume that everyone is born with perfect vocal projection. And why I bring that up is that conditioning is what takes it away from us. So we're all born perfect in this sense, but as we grow, we get conditioned away from strong and good and healthy vocal projection. How does this happen? One of the main reasons for this is the rewards and the incentives that we get as kids. So, for example, generally, if you imagine going into a social gathering and there's 15 adults and there's 2 kids, how do you want the kids to behave? You'd probably want them to be quiet and not disturb the conversations that the adults are having. Like you'd like to maybe lock them in a room so that they can play and not disturb the others or the adults. And if they come to the adults, like yes, you give them attention, but you'd kind of prefer them to be quiet. So as a child, I remember many occasions when I've been told to be quiet, and I remember many occasions, especially as an adult, where I would wish that the kids who are around would be more quiet so that they wouldn't be a distraction. So there's a very strong programming and incentivization for kids to start thinking quiet child good, loud child bad. And the more this is reinforced, the more it's going to affect our behavior. So if from childhood you've gotten rewards from being quiet, like you get candy from grandparents when you're not yelling, and you don't get candy from grandparents when you are yelling, you can imagine that this definitely affects your conditioning and your programming around this subject. Another very, very important thing, and this is actually the source of why men who speak on a soft voice, the reason why they speak in a soft voice is generally their parents. So the way your parents speak at home as you're growing up is 99% likely to be adopted to the way you speak, because that's all you know. It's a similar thing as how the model of a romantic relationship looks like. You get that model from home because you grow up in that, and that's your reality, and that's all you know. For you, that's right. And it's a similar thing of the way you speak. If your father and your mother speak in a soft voice at home as you're growing up, chances are that you are going to adopt that. The client that I'm working with right now is a very, very good example of that. It's not only that his parents spoke softly at home when he was growing up, but his father would also make statements like, um, if you need to yell, your argument is not strong enough. So there's all these things they program us, and they take us away from projecting in a strong and healthy way. And there's a cool example of singing in the world of conditioning. A lot of people consider themselves tone deaf, and a lot of people in this world consider themselves not to be good singers. The reality of the fact is that anyone in this world can learn to sing, just like anyone in this world can learn how to project their voice strong. And there's if you think you're a bad singer, and I would imagine statistically at least one of you in this group would consider themselves to be bad singers, there's a very good chance that the reason for that is that someone in your childhood who holds a position of authority for you as a child has told you that, oh yeah, you can't sing. That's right. And it can be a parent, it can be an uncle, it can be an aunt, it can be a teacher, anyone, any adult typically who holds a position of authority in your childhood. If they make such a statement and you believe it and you start repeating it to yourself internally, it becomes your reality. And the end result is that you never really challenge it, you never really sing, and you never really train your instrument, or you have a lot of fear around it. So there's similar conditioning kind of a thing. similar as a function of conditioning, this is true both for singing and vocal projection. Now, the truth with being tone deaf, it's incredibly rare for you not to be able to tell the difference between different notes. That is a neurological defect that less than 1% of population has. If, and this is just a curious anecdotal thing, if you can tell by the sound of her voice whether you're speaking with your sister or your mom over the phone, if you can recognize the difference in their voice, you cannot be tone deaf. It's the same mechanism that gives you the ability to recognize someone by their voice as you can recognize different tones. So if you're able to make that difference, you have the potential of becoming a good singer too. So nothing to worry about there if you're thinking of becoming the next American Idol. And challenges with this. The technique for strong vocal projection is not really that hard to learn. Reprogramming your subconscious so that you do it automatically, that's the hard part. That takes time and effort. Now, example of my own life, when I went on this journey of wanting to get my dating life in order, I already had the strong vocal projection in me. Like, I had the capacity to really dominate any kind of a space with my voice if I wanted to. There's a great example. I went to an RSD Europe summit, Euro summit in 2019 in Paris, and it was in a huge venue. It was like massive conference hall, and Derek asked me to speak on something as like I was already working with him. I had already been to one boot camp, and he asked me to give input on something, and I felt a very, very strong sense of power when I realized that I can dominate a massive venue with my voice so that everyone in that space hears me, and I'm not even using a microphone. Now, I can do that very easily when I'm conscious of it and when I'm in a space where there's not a lot of distraction, but I could not do it in a nightclub very early. I had to condition myself to have that also when there's a lot of, like, there's background music going on. It might be super loud. There might be a lot of distraction. There's lights. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling approach anxiety because I'm doing something that is uncomfortable for me. There's other men. There's all these beautiful women. So my vocal projection it was still strong, but it wasn't healthy anymore. So I would start pushing my voice. I would start forcing it out, and at the end of the night, I would very often have a hoarse voice. So just because I was for years capable of very strong vocal projection didn't mean that I'm doing it automatically yet. And I still don't do it all the time, and not automatically all the time. There's also a thing with calibration, that there are occasions where it makes sense, and there are occasions where it really doesn't. So you have to be mindful of that too. More on that later. But it's like the reprogramming and making it automatic is really the hard part. Learning the technique, not the most difficult part. For example, with my client, we already got there on our first session. Like, we got a very, very good result for him on the first live session that we have. Now we have a Zoom calls. He's in Turkey, so now this is just reinforcing what we've already gone through and giving him more and more exercises. But it takes years to unlearn something that you do as commonly as speaking, because we do speak a lot in life. So if you've done it a certain way for 30-40 years, like, yeah, it'll take time and effort to reprogram that. Fundamentals: breathing and resonance. So at the core of everything is diaphragmatic breathing. And what I mean by diaphragmatic breathing is, I'll demonstrate. So instead of breathing in to your upper torso, instead of breathing into your chest, you should be breathing into your belly. So I'm just gonna adjust the camera a little bit so it's more obvious. So very often when people breathe in, the air goes up here, and your chest raises and your shoulders might raise as well. That's not how you want to be breathing in. The ideal way to breathe is when you breathe in. Fucking camera. Let me adjust the camera a little bit so that you can see me. Ideally, when you breathe, the only body part that you have moving is your belly. So if I breathe in and I breathe into my diaphragm, the only thing moving is my belly. If I breathe in not so in a non-ideal way, I breathe in here, and I can feel that my chest starts bulging and my shoulders raise up. So this is one of the first things that you can start being aware of. How do you breathe? Do you breathe into your belly, or do you breathe into your chest and your shoulders? If you find your shoulders moving, if you find your chest bulging, you're doing it wrong. And as babies, we breathe like this. We have perfect diaphragmatic breathing as babies until conditioning takes it away from us. And also, what's curious, this is how we breathe when we sleep. So when we sleep, all of the conditioning that we've gotten from life is gone. So it's a pretty strong testament that this is the correct way to breathe. And demonstration I already did. And there is a very, very low hanging fruit that helps you breathe into your diaphragm, and that's actually to breathe in through your nose. You totally can breathe in through your nose and do it incorrectly, so that if you want to, you can breathe in through your nose and breathe into your chest and your shoulders. But if you breathe into your nose and you breathe out through your mouth, it's way more natural for your body to align itself in a way that it goes to your diaphragm. There's many other benefits for breathing into your nose as well. We have nose hair, and there is a biological and evolutionary reason for that. That is a filter. Like your nose, when you breathe in, it filters the air that goes in, and it's more clean, and there's also a difference in moisture. So let's actually all of us do a little 30-second exercise. So first, breathe in through your nose. And be aware of how it feels. Let's breathe in through our nose again. And just observe if you feel anything as you breathe in through your nose. And let's breathe out. And now breathe in through your mouth. Is there a difference in sensation? Does anyone feel difference in how it feels to breathe through your nose or through your mouth? Well, I'll help you out. The breathing in through your mouth, I feel like my throat gets dry immediately as I breathe in through my mouth. So there's a different sensation, and as I breathe in through my nose, I don't really feel like anything. And this is actually something that I discovered rather recently. So right now I'm in the process of reconditioning myself to basically always breathe in through my nose. I expect that to take a long time, because how you breathe is something that you've been doing as a very vital element of life support for a long time. So changing that is going to take a while. But breathing through your nose has multiple benefits, and it's not only for your vocal projection. There's also a lot of it's healthier in general. So a warm recommendation to give focus on that. And as I pointed out, it is a more natural diaphragmatic breathing, and nose hair is a natural filter. Another thing, fundamentals. When you speak, where do you feel the resonance? Ideally, if you're speaking at a pitch that is actually very natural to you, you will feel the resonance in your chest. Now, where do I feel mine? I feel it both in the chest, and I feel it a little bit on my throat as well. Ideally, in an absolutely perfect vocal projection, I would feel it only on my chest, but I don't expect myself to be perfect. So I allow myself to feel it both on my chest and my throat, and that is perfectly fine. But the more awareness you can bring to that, the better you're going to project, and the healthier your voice is going to be. The healthier your voice is going to be. And singers speak of chest voice. And the other, I'll just give a demonstration. So this is part of my chest voice, and this is but not part of my chest voice. That's head voice. So you can get really, really high in pitch if you use your head voice. And this resonant and strong and dark and masculine voice is the chest voice. So something to be aware of whenever you're speaking, if you can remind yourself to feel, where do you feel the resonance, where do you feel your voice? If you can feel it, the more you can feel it down here, the better you're doing. And let's move on to exercises. How am I with time? Still fine. Exercise 1, how to strengthen your diaphragmatic breathing, the long S. So it's a very simple exercise. So what I do is I stand against the wall and I keep my shoulders to the wall as well. This is how you can get yourself into a strong posture and a healthy and yeah, let's just call the posture strong. So all you got to do is you breathe in through your nose, and then you breathe out, letting out a audible S, so that it's. Not sure if the microphone is picking up my S from that distance, so that's why I leaned in close. But it's literally, you're breathing through your nose. And what is important is when you're letting the S out, allow your belly to come in. So as you breathe in and your belly goes out, as you're letting the S out, you let your belly come in as well. And this is fine tuning, but there is a difference between letting your belly come in and forcing your belly to come in as you breathe out or as you speak out. So the more you can lean on letting it come in, as opposed to forcing it to come in, the better off you are. Simple exercise. And then this can be, if you want to take exercises on this topic, this is where I suggest you start. Exercise 2, the OM. So once again, you stand up against the wall. You can also do this lying down, but I like standing up against the wall because when your shoulders are up against the wall, your posture is good. So that helps you program that side of things. And instead of a long S, you just let out a long Om, just like a yoga master might. So simple exercise. I'm gonna skip standing next to the wall because I think you can hear me better if I'm here. So just breathe in through your nose and Om. And just be aware, where do you feel the resonance? If you feel it in your chest, you're fine. If you don't, find a way to feel it in your chest. And it's usually, if you can't feel it in your chest, you're most likely too high in pitch. So just take your pitch down to a level where it's more natural, and you should be feeling it in your chest. Exercise 3, the 4-stroke engine. Once again, stand up against the wall, breathe in through your nose, but now instead of one long S, you breathe out in 4 segments, so that you breathe in and then so you breathe out 1 quarter, and then 2nd quarter, 3rd quarter, and 4th quarter, all in one breath out, but you stop it 4 times along the way. This muscularly and instrument wise does basically the same thing as the long S exercise, but this improves your control and improves the connection you have with your body and your speaking instrument. So simple exercise. Once again, you breathe in and you breathe out in 4 different segments. And then finally, exercise 4, timing. Once again, you can stand up against the wall and you breathe in through your nose. Only this time, as you breathe in your mind, count 1, 2. And the risk with these exercises is that you start breathing in unnecessary amounts. And if you start doing these exercises and you find yourself feeling dizzy and you find yourself feeling a little bit woozy, it's because you take in too much oxygen. And that is something that when you start doing these exercises, it's a very easy mistake to make. You can't hurt yourself by taking in too much oxygen. There's like that, you can't hurt yourself. That's okay. But it's not comfortable to feel woozy in social interactions anyway. So you'll want to avoid that. There is if you start feeling dizzy during exercises, you're breathing in too much. And the fact is that you only need to make it to the end of a sentence. You don't need to breathe in as much as you think. You only need to breathe in enough. So the point of the exercise is that as you breathe in your head, you count 1, 2, and as you breathe out, you can count out loud 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that the ratio is roughly 1 to 4. That actually is a pretty good natural ratio of how much time it takes to breathe in as opposed to how much time it takes to breathe out. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. Obviously, the question is too broad to generalize too much, but that is a pretty good ratio. And especially this is important as a function of how much air you take in. Vocal health. So going from the strength of your projection to the health of your voice. There's a few low-hanging fruits that you can do, and there's a few low-hanging fruits that you should avoid. The do's would be to breathe at commas and at the ends of sentences. There's an easy mistake that a lot of people do is when they keep speaking and speaking and speaking and speaking, and they don't breathe in the middle of a sentence, and they don't breathe in the middle of a comma, and they just keep speaking and speaking and speaking, and they start losing the power of their voice, and their voice becomes a little bit like a creaking hinge. I'm overdoing it a little bit right now, but this is how your voice will end up sounding like if you did never breathe in. In Copenhagen, this sound is called creaking, and you can use it as a vocal effect in your singing, and I use it from time to time, and it's completely fine if you artistically want to use it, but it's not a healthy way to speak. And this is actually the best way, the easiest way to come up with permanent damage to your vocal cords is actually to speak in an unhealthy way. Even if you sing hard rock and you're using a lot of vocal effects like AC/DC's Thunderstruck, these kind of stuff, like if you do that in a healthy way, that's fine. And even if you do that in an unhealthy way, that's it takes you years to produce permanent vocal damage in your cords. But if you speak on a daily basis in an unhealthy way, you're more likely to develop different problems in your vocal cords. Now, a good way to mitigate this is to remember to breathe at commas, like whenever there's a little pause in whatever you're saying, breathe in and go from there. It also brings presence, and it also brings rhythm and structure and like sense of ease for your message, because if you speak in a rushed way, it usually takes away some of the credibility in what your message is. Drink enough water on a daily basis to keep your vocal cords moist. Now, this is actually one of the easiest things to do. Water is available for everyone and it's not expensive. So drinking more water than you're doing right now would actually immediately improve your vocal health too, because it ensures that there's enough moisture in your vocal cords. And one of the reasons why your morning voice, because you probably all know that your voice is different in the morning right after you wake up, as opposed to in the afternoon when your system is already running in a normal way. One of the main reasons for that is lack of moisturization on your vocal cords. Another reason is that during the night as we sleep, we start accumulating mucus on your vocal cords and in your throat, and it takes a while to clear that in the morning. But the other reason is the lack of moisture and lack of water. So very low hanging fruit is just to drink more water. If you want to go high tech, consider getting a humidifier. This might be if you're, for example, coaching for many hours per day, it might actually be a good investment to invest into a humidifier in your room, because this will moisturize the air that you breathe in, so that actually gives longevity to your voice through the day. I don't have one. I might get one somewhere down the line, but I've never felt like that's something that I would need. But it's there in case someone wants to go super hacker with something like this. Don't. Marilyn Monroe sexy voice, and what I mean by that is the airy voice that is very compelling and very sexy, and it is very intimate and kind of comes under your skin right away. This is unhealthy because you push air through your vocal cords, and it's a little bit like you're whispering all the time. And whispering is actually one of the worst things you can ever do to your voice. There are reasons sometimes why you want to do that, but uh, especially if you are sick and if your voice is hoarse already, intuitively we might be drawn to whisper, because somewhere in our mind we think that if we speak softer, we save up our voice, and it's going to be better. A little bit like if your muscles are sore, you might want to be lifting a little bit lower weights at the gym temporarily. So intuitively we might think that whispering is going to help, but no, it's actually going to do the opposite. Whispering is a little bit of the worst thing you can do to your vocal cords, so don't ever do it for prolonged periods of time. Smoking is obviously not a good idea. And this is for obvious reasons. The smoke does dry up your vocal cords, and also it does create inflammation long term. So that's, and smoking is very unhealthy in general. I do have to confess here that I don't practice everything that I preach 100% of the time. I'm an ex-smoker and I've been relapsing in and out of smoking lately. So I'm not absolutely perfect about this myself, but I allow myself to be human sometimes. So that's just a full transparency confession right there. Another thing, this is more a thing for singers, but if I've been talking about like letting your belly come in as you breathe out. Some of us might have a tendency of locking these muscles that we have here, like, and if I lock my muscles, I start sounding like this. And because when you lock your belly muscles as you speak, there's actually a satellite constriction in your throat. You can all try this if you want. You can squeeze your belly muscles as much as you can, and you will hear that, not hear, you can feel that the constrictor muscles around your vocal cords also tense up, and that will end up affecting how you sound. That's just something to be aware of. Most likely not going to be an issue for anyone, but something to be aware of. And yeah, once again, instead allow your belly to come in as you speak. Social dynamics of vocal projection. Why is this important? And once again, why coming back to why I decided to speak about this today. As you learn to be stronger with your vocal projection, something will most likely come up, and you will there will be times when you will be so loud that it's not appropriate anymore. So there is a thing called calibration that is something to keep in mind. Too loud is too loud. There is a sweet spot. Ideally, you'll want to be around 10 to 15% louder than the ambient noise. So this is when you're there, people can hear you, but it's not abrupt. It's not like, it's not too much, but it's just like a sweet spot. And what this generates, and what the effect that this does, is that people start to be subconsciously aware of your presence. For example, if you imagine a cocktail party, and there is an ambient noise that is kind of consistent and constant, and it's roughly at the same level. If you walk into the venue and you start speaking roughly 10-15% louder than the ambient noise, people will start subconsciously being aware of your presence. And literally what their subconscious is started to tell them is that, oh, an alpha male or alpha female has arrived. It's like, oh, a tribal chief has arrived, because someone who's comfortable enough of their presence that is allowing them to be a little bit louder than everyone else and not being like self-conscious about it, that is a very strong leadership aspect. And that is how you communicate you being a tribal chief. So that's something to be aware of. But I will stress again that calibration, that's it's everything. There's like I've screwed up with this a few times, and it's created some weird situations socially when I've been just abruptly loud. But I've learned to calibrate. I like to think that I've learned to calibrate by now pretty well. Another thing, if you want to start practicing this and you want to start discovering what your voice really sounds like, there is a sweet spot, and there is a natural voice that you have, and the deeper and the darker that it is, the more reliability and trust you communicate. So if you, I'm going to overdo a deep dark voice right now. This doesn't sound natural anymore. You all know how I sound like in general. Now I'm deepening and darkening it on purpose. But this, if I'm speaking to someone who doesn't know me yet, it doesn't feel so off to them, but I communicate more reliability and trust as I speak like this. And just listen to female politicians, for example. Pay attention when you next time hear a female politician speak. Chances are that that female politician has a darker and deeper voice than women in general. And this is literally because the deep, dark voice communicates reliability and trust way stronger than a higher pitched voice would. And I don't need to tell you why. This is all evolutionary, and this is all something that just feels one way or another generally in human population. So that's one way to utilize it. Now, there's also calibration that comes in with this. For example, the client that I'm working with right now, like, he can go super deep and super dark, but it doesn't sound natural anymore. So if you start faking it too much, and if you start pushing your voice deeper and darker unnecessary amounts, then it will start feeling unnatural to the recipient, and then you're probably shooting yourself in the leg. And like the fact that people start feeling like, okay, something's off here, like something's not right, like, then it's not going to help you anymore. But there is if you can find a healthy way to project your natural voice very strong, that's literally where you want to be. There is an exercise, I'll just quickly introduce an exercise how you can discover your natural pitch. And it's literally when you breathe in and just like as relaxed as you can, you breathe in and say, the level at which, the pitch at which you say that, that's very close to your natural pitch. So when all the conditioning and all the things that have happened to your life, to you during your life, if all of that is taken away, when you breathe in and go, that's roughly the level of your natural voice, the pitch level of your natural voice. So that's that's something to be aware of. This was scraping the surface. I hope this opened your eyes for the importance of vocal projection, and hopefully you got some tools and things out of this. This will conclude the presentation, and I am we have about, yeah, we have about 12-15 minutes for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.